Michael, do you remember when I said a few weeks back, we know who teams are now. We're probably not going to be moving them very much anymore. It's just going to be minor
Yes,
tweaks. Remember? Yeah, I
I
said
do
that.
recall
I
that one.
said that on stream
Yeah.
like an idiot. And we've been proven wrong in subsequent weeks. And that's the case this week as well. So
Yeah,
it's going to be fun, though, to move them around. It won't be super fun always being
true.
wrong. But I should start saying the Cardinals are going to lose and then be wrong. That would really help things. So,
It's true.
anyways, hello, everyone. This is We Are the Game. I'm Luke, and that's Michael. And today, as I kind of said, we're going to do our power rankings for this week. There's actually a good amount of change because a lot of things happened and injuries are happening and all this stuff that's trying to add up to who knows what. And I guess we'll just see along the way. So we're using the tier maker tier list tool, and this is where we left off last week. Now we're going to go division by division and move teams as we see fit or just guess. And starting with guessing with the AFC, and then eventually we'll get to the NFC. So the AFC North, solid amount of movement here. The Steelers did get the win, and that's good. And that's probably going to keep them right now at the tail end of where they are. There is some question on Aaron Rodgers, something of a fracture or something like that, and his throwing hand. I believe his throwing hand. But they're saying he's going to play, and that's good, of course. But how much is it going to affect him? I've seen quarterbacks with like pinkies tied together because one of them got sprained, and I was like, oh, it's not a big deal, and they were totally off for the rest of the season. So little things can have a big impact. That was not a dominant offense last week. I don't see it being a dominant one moving forward. So we'll see. But for now, I think I'm going to leave them right where they are. But they are getting chased very aggressively by this other team, Baltimore Ravens. Now, they had kind of a sketchy win, but it was, over the Browns. They got the win. Kudos. They keep on streaking upward. Ever since being 1-5, they haven't lost since. But that was an ugly win. Lamar got sacked several times. I think Miles had another 4. Quick shout out to Myles Garrett. I hope you break the record. Yeah. It'll be the weirdest season ever when you probably should have left the Browns and didn't, but here we are. And Lamar threw, I think, a couple of picks. And so he had a rough game, but they still found a way to win. It was also strange to see an end around with Mark Andrews for 35 yards. But again, they keep on winning. They keep on proving us right in this whole trending upward thing. So at the very least, I'm going to move them up here in this row. And I don't know exactly where they belong in this row. You could say they go up here or back here. It doesn't really matter. The point is they are hot on the heels of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I won't be shocked at all if they catch them. So keep on moving upward, and I expect to see you up in this bracket or even above by the end of the season. So, yeah, good times. Cleveland. I'm sorry. Scratch that. Cincinnati, they are flirting with top 10 pick right now. That is kind of where they are. There's still this question about if Joe Burrow is going to come back and play this season. There's another question about should Joe Burrow bother coming back and playing this season. And on some level, I personally think, he probably should because it's his job. And so we'll see, but they are still flirting right now with top 10 pick. I can't move them down within this row because I'm not going to put them behind the Cardinals in any circumstance. But they are flirting with top 10 pick. Now, the Browns, they're probably going to win one of their next 3 games, if not 2 of their next 3 games, as they have the Raiders and the Titans. But right now, they are playing more like the tail end or, more like pick 6 than pick 10, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So I'd be willing to move them back here. This does not mean I'm super high on the Raiders. Please don't take it that way. But, for the moment, they have Myles Garrett, and that's about all they have. And on top of that, Shedeur Sanders did not look great. We'll see what he looks like with the week of prepping with the ones and if there's much added to it, if we're more confident in what we're seeing. But for now, it looks like, it's Myles Garrett in that defense and then nothing. But then again, that's kind of what they've looked like all season. So we'll see. What did you think of the AFC North?
Yeah, they're one of the biggest quandaries, I think, in football. There's a disparity here, right? There's 2 clearly not good teams, the Bengals and the Browns. And the biggest question mark, as you were pointing out there, is Shedeur. Like, if Shedeur I don't even think he needs to be like an extraordinary quarterback right now. He just needs to be able to play a consistent, solid game. He doesn't need to hero ball. Just like, hey, let's see you just play some big boy football up here. I think they, like you pointed out, they're going to win some games. But it was a very unconvincing opening moment into the NFL. So we'll see where he goes from there. The Bengals are the Bengals. We'll just leave them there. Going back to the Ravens, the thing with that, they're definitely on an uphill trajectory. But Lamar, I guess, came out of that with some kind of an ankle injury. I know he didn't practice yesterday. It's like, well, how is he going to play? Because they are not the same team when he's not there, clearly. They do have an easier game this week against the Jets, and then they have the Bengals. But then they have a very big game against the Steelers. So I'll be interested to see what they do this week. I assume that Lamar's not going to be too injured. I think this makes sense. There's definitely echoing their current trajectory. We'll see if they can hold on. And then the Steelers, it's kind of they need to regain the momentum. They are not what they were looking like for a while there, and they just need to get their foot back on the gas pedal. But I like where you got people right now. I think this is pretty good indication of where they are right now.
Nice. Well, and why don't you take us to the AFC East? Tell us about that, David.
Well, the East, the most intriguing thing about the East is still the Patriots. They're still a rocket ship heading towards the playoffs. They just find ways to win. They find ways to win. I think we're going to move them just a little bit to respect their long win streak. I think we're going to move them just to the left one over the mighty Seahawks, just to echo their defeat this last week to the Rams. So I'll move the Patriots to the left ones there. I don't think that's any huge shock. The Bills are the Bills, and they did beat up on the Bucks. I think I would probably leave them right where they are for the moment. They've had some ups and downs. I'm still reeling from them losing to the Dolphins. So I think right there for the moment makes sense. We can kind of chill out there. Speaking of the Dolphins, I think we should recognize the Dolphins for having beat what for a while there looked like two playoff teams in the last few games. Now all of a sudden, not so much with Washington, but they beat Buffalo and Washington in back-to-back games. I think it's time to give them a little credit. Let's go ahead and move them up above, like where it currently is, right behind Dallas, in front of Washington, since they just beat them. We'll go there. Way to go, Dolphins. Making some progress. We'll see how long they can keep that. If they can become consistent with that, would be really fascinating. Let's see. And then we've got the Jets. I think we can comfortably leave the Jets right where they are. They're going to make some changes this weekend. That may change what they do for the rest of the season. But I don't have a ton of confidence in that quarterback change answering their current issues. So that's kind of what I see. What do you think? Does that make sense to you, or what would you change?
For the most part, I think if I was going to tweak it ever so slightly, I'd probably put the Dolphins in front of the Falcons and then just allude to the possibility that Dallas might also be moving later. But ultimately, it doesn't. We could do that in a roundabout way by moving those teams when we get to them. But, that's kind of about right. Like, I'd put them behind the Texans. They're funny because they're not winning games exactly like you think of the Dolphins. Oh, the Dolphins, last year they won that game like 70-20 or whatever. That's the Dolphins. And that's not the Dolphins this year. So we'll see how they continue to win or lose games moving forward, but they're a different team than we expected. So, kind of credit to them for finding an identity after losing Tyreek Hill. But for everyone else, I think it makes sense. Still, every team should be scared of the Bills. Let me rephrase that. Every team should be scared of Josh Allen. He is close to carrying that team for real as we've ever seen. Obviously, it's 11 on 11, either side of the ball, but that guy is wild, man. So we'll see. Patriots have earned all that. I'd be tempted to put the Patriots up in Super Bowl favorites to be the other AFC Super Bowl favorite one. And I wouldn't have any issue. I wouldn't have any issue if you had put them up there. But it's fine. Again, the difference between some of those teams up at the top is minute at most. So
agreed.
So that makes sense. All right. Well, with the East out of the way, then let's move around. Let's go to the South and tell me what you think there.
The Colts are the Colts. We can just leave them right where they are.
Yep.
They keep winning. They had that loss to the Steelers And then they came back and beat the Falcons. They go to play the Chiefs. I think that for right now, we just keep them right where they are. Still looking great. Jacksonville continues to impress, I think, in what they're doing. They absolutely blew out the Chargers, which on many levels, I think they played a great game. But it's hard to say. I think it would be hard to say anything other than the Chargers played the worst game they've probably played maybe in the last few years anyway. It was an atrocious game. Yep. So, it's a loss. We'll see what they do kind of coming up. Jags have a couple of probably easier games and then go play the Colts. We'll learn a lot about the Jaguars in that game. So I'm really looking forward to that game. It's a couple weeks out, but still looking forward to it. As far as the Jaguars go, I still want to keep them somewhere in this group. It's like I'm on the verge of wanting to move them up, but I'm not quite there. So I'll probably leave the Jags right here. Sorry, Jags fan. And then Houston. Houston's now won 2 in a row. I think that part of me wants to say that they're making progress. They're figuring things out. One of those wins was against the aforementioned Jags in a game where they had some offense. It was great. And then they beat the Titans by 3 points, which is very confusing. If they win against the Bills, then I see us really, really shifting them more. I'm going to move them up, though, for the moment into missing playoffs. They beat the Bills, we can move them up further. I mean, if they beat the Bills, we may be moving all sorts of people. So there's something to be intrigued by. And then there's the Titans, who did play a very close divisional game against Houston and still found a way to lose. They're holding tight there to number 1, and I think that's a good spot for them. So, that's how I see the South right now. What do you see?
Yeah, about the same. Jacksonville, I mean, they're probably going to win this week because they have an easy opponent, but they're threatening right there. So right now, there will be 7 teams, of course, that make the playoffs on each side, AFC and NFC, and there are 7 teams that we have in the AFC up here. They are appropriately threatening. They and the Ravens are kind of chasing the Steelers right now. They're not going to catch the Colts unless an insane catastrophe happens. The Colts are so good, they probably need a chain of catastrophes to happen. So they're looking for a wild card spot. They might also be able to catch the Chiefs. More to come on that. But for the moment, even though I believe they're in the playoffs, if the playoffs started today, I think that's right. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I lost track there for a second. I still have some lingering questions, but not many. And so they are right there knocking on the door. For the most part, the AFC South is not comfortable. Comfortable is the wrong word, but we have a pretty good idea on who some of these teams are. I will say for the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, they started out the year and we thought, oh man, this is a really good team. And then they faded and we thought, we were wrong. And now they're coming back and proving the first part of the season right again. So hopefully they don't relapse into that second part of the team again, but we'll see. Houston, they're not going to have CJ Stroud again tonight, but Davis Mills has played pretty solid. We'll see what they can put together. So, all right, with that being said, let's move out to the West. So for the AFC West, there were a couple of really big games. One kind of big game and then a really big game. So Denver, of course, beating Kansas City. I won't say it was convincing, but that's kind of a giant for them to get past. They have struggled in the last inch of the Kansas City Chiefs, it seems like, for some time now. And they didn't let it go this year. So they are playing really well, and their defense, if nothing else, is top tier. Bo Nix has not played, to me, quite as well as he did last year, or I should say the offense as a whole. But I'm willing to put the Denver Broncos up a bit, maybe right about there. You could say they're in front of the Patriots if you wanted. That's fine. Again, these 3 teams, I don't think there's tons and tons of difference right now, although we haven't gotten to the NFC West yet. But Kansas City, they didn't lose badly. And if I'm saying they didn't lose badly to an incredibly good Denver Broncos team, I can't move them tons. But I'm willing to put them down just a little at least into the nearly falling off, but not quite fallen off yet. They're still getting credit. I know some people out there are like, come on, man, they're 5-5. And it's like, I get it, but it's the Chiefs. And we've all seen this before. They are too clutch. They're too good, too well coached. And oftentimes they get too much help for me to really believe that they're not going to make the playoffs somehow. So I'm holding on to that as this expectation that they might still make it. They'll pull this together. So I'm going to leave them there for now, and come what may. The Chargers lost a pretty nasty game. One of the nastiest games you're going to see all season. It's not that they lost to a bad opponent. It's just they lost badly to an opponent that they should have been better than. So again, not willing to take them out of playoffs just yet because we've seen better than this from them. I'm going to put them just in front of the Chiefs. Yeah, I think just in front of the Chiefs for now. The Raiders are still the Raiders. They have moments where they play okay. They just didn't play particularly well against your Dallas Cowboys, and we're not sure exactly yet how much of that is a new look Dallas Cowboys or how much of that is a bad game or what. So I think the Raiders are still looking like they're going to be a top 10 pick. Where they fall in that particular ladder is anyone's guess, but it's still kind of where they're playing right now. So we'll see. What did you think of the West?
I mean, I think the West is pretty well represented here. You know, the Broncos, one of the best records in football. They do win. Yeah, it's close games, but they're winning them. You'd like to see some more separation there, but it has the feel though of like they're confident in the fourth quarter going to win games. So that's exciting there. My expectation with the Chargers, they're going to bounce right back and be, hey, it was just a bad game. It was just a bad game. That's my gut reaction to their game. But I kind of felt like that with Kansas City for like 3 or 4 weeks, right? It's like, that's just a bad game to end up on the wrong side of. And now, I don't know. No, I'm no longer confident in the Chiefs at all, and what they really have left. These next 2 weeks are going to be really big indicator for them. So we'll see how they weather that storm. But yeah, and then the Raiders game was strange because in the first quarter, I felt like they actually came out the gate very hot. Max Crosby had this phenomenal play on Dak, a strip sack kind of thing, and they look like, hey, we're here and we're going to compete, and they just just quickly slipped away after that. So yeah, I agree. I think the Raiders still kind of lingering there at the bottom of the pack, and I don't really see them getting out of that either. So no, I agree with you. I think this makes a lot of sense. It's funny because there's not a lot of room for the top tier of this division to go up, but there's definitely some room for the bottom 2 teams to go down. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, and we're knocking on the door of certain things because like as much as we didn't move anything super dramatically here, there is a huge difference between this row and this row. So the Chiefs and Steelers really are flirting with that. And, this week the Chiefs play the Colts. And obviously if they can win that game, they'll be back in everyone. I don't want to say they'll be back in everyone's good graces, but they'll be back in the more, whatever you call it, the expectations of making the playoffs and doing something. But if they lose it, it's going to be hard not to drop them down to potential wild card, especially with the combined potential wins of, say, Baltimore and Jacksonville. So we'll see. We are on the fringe of much more movement in the AFC West, but for now, I think this is about it. So, all right. So that wraps up the AFC. Let's move up to the NFC North and then move back around. Sadly, as much as I really like a lot about what this team does, it's time to move. It's probably past time to move. Maybe I've been in denial about the Lions, but they're taking some chances and they're not coming up heads as often as they would like. This last game against the Eagles, they only scored 9 points, I believe. And, they put up some yards. And of course there's issues, people have talked about some of the stuff that happened with officiating, and that's something, but it's hard to really measure and calculate in something like this. But I can tell you they went 0 for 5 on 4th down. And that's the risk of something, the Dan Campbell kind of coaching, right? So, when they go 4 for 5 on those, then they dominate teams. They score 50 points. Yeah. But you go 0 for 5 on those, and those are basically 5 turnovers. So they got to come down at least for a moment because there's several teams playing better than they are right now, more consistently. So I'm willing to bring them down to there, honestly. That's probably about right for me. I do think they'll climb back, maybe up in the higher reaches here. Actually, we've just got too big a sample size of them being exceptionally good. But for the moment, they're not playing like a team that's up here. in my little tiny who gives a darn opinion. But we'll see if they can get back there. Green Bay, I still feel kind of shaky about Green Bay. They got the win, and good for them. But it's over the Giants, and it was kind of barely over the Jameis Winston-led Giants. And so I still have my misgivings about Green Bay. Their defense is pretty solid. Their offense has some huge question marks. I still feel like Jordan Love is a fine quarterback with a really good deep ball. So as long as that offensive line keeps together and gives him the time for long plays to build, they've got a nice shot. Yeah. That's kind of what broke that game against the Giants open. So if they can continue to do that, they'll still continue to be here. But I just don't think that they're complete enough. Their run game really hasn't been what we were hoping it would be or what we saw last year. And I know they've had some injuries. Josh Jacobs has not been completely healthy. Excuse me. So we'll see what they can put together there. I still think they're one of the – I'm more confident in them still making the playoffs. They're well coached, well run, but they're mostly well coached. But I certainly can't move them up from where they are now. So you got the Bears. The Bears won another one, and I think it might be time to move the Bears up. Like I'm expecting – like when I put the Bears up into playoff teams, let's say here – that's weird to move them in front of the Chiefs, first of all. When I say I'm moving them up here, what this basically means for the Bears is I expect them to make the playoffs at the rate that they're kind of going, and they've been going for some time. So it's not just like, oh, they had one good game. It's they've done that thing we talked about last week. It's like last year they would have lost so many of these games by one score, by 1 point. But this year they're finding ways to win those games. If they can keep that up, they should make the playoffs for whatever all the reasons are. They should continue to win enough games to put them in the playoffs. So I'm willing to put them up there for now. I believe that means someone else has to drop out at some point. That may not be this week, but these are all teams that are playoff worthy or caliber, or at least I expect them to be there. So for now, I'm willing to put the Bears up there. I'm putting them in front of the Chiefs and the Chiefs and the Steelers for aforementioned reasons. So yeah, I'm kind of comfortable with that decision. It doesn't feel quite right because it's the Bears, but at the same time, this is where they are. So you got the Vikings still putting up a good fight frequently. They are still a roster with a lot of talent on it, but they're just not able to put together wins. And I feel like they're almost epitomizing the exact place where they are in this ranking. So you are the best of the 8-8 teams at the end of the season, or 8-9, that kind of thing at the end of the season. And that feels like where they are heading as quickly as humanly possible. So, yeah, I didn't miss anyone. That's kind of where I have the NFC North. What did you think of this?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I don't disagree with where you have them, currently for sure. They're going kind of in reverse order. With the Vikings, I can't help but feeling, but it definitely still feels like they're a team that is one piece away, and it's the piece they gave up. Yeah, they're a quarterback away from being a legitimate contender in that division, which is a really good division. And they don't have it. They just don't have it. So I agree with you there. The Bears are easily the most fun to talk about because their trajectory is like, hey, we're on a winning streak. We're up 3 games. But the 3 games they won were the Giants, the Bengals, and the Vikings. The best of those obviously being the Vikings, and they eked out a win there. Yeah. And now they're going to go play the Packers, the Steelers, the Eagles, Packers. So we're going to learn a ton about this team in the next 3 weeks. Do I think they deserve to be where you have them? 100% agree. Now you've earned this spot. Now you've got to keep it. So, more power to them. Let's see how they show up and play those games. The Steelers are definitely hoping that they're not there for real because the Steelers really need that win. Yeah. Green Bay, it's like – I don't know. Like they show up and they kind of eke out wins. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next 3 games. I find it interesting how much I think this division can shift in these next 3 weeks because there's a lot of big games coming up where they're kind of beating each other up on some level. But there's a real opportunity for one of these teams, the Bears maybe, to just run away with this division in these next 3 weeks. So, I'll be very interested in that. But, I do think it's time for the Lions to I think that's smart to move them kind of where they're playing. They can move back up, but right now they're certainly not playing better than the teams. The three teams in particular at the left of the Super Bowl contenders group. I definitely don't think the Lions are playing better than them. So no, I agree. I think that's good. Looking sharp.
Yeah, and it may feel like we're kind of talking on both sides of our mouth about like, oh, the Bears are winning these close games, and then we're like talking about the Packers, like, well, the Packers are just winning these close games. Like, but to be fair, we do have the Packers in front of the Bears. So as much as this is disappointing, this that different inflection in our voice or whatever you want to call it is kind of because we had more expectations on the Packers going into the season than the Bears. So it's surprising, but I have to give it some positive kudos over here. But then for the Packers, we're like, you were supposed to be in Super Bowl favorites, and so we're almost surprised that you're not. So again, if you're a Bears fan and out there wondering why we're mentioning a different or Packers or whatever, like it's just surprising.
Expectations at the beginning of the season, because we would have had the Bears probably in the mediocre at best. Really didn't think they had everything figured out. They're definitely doing a great job. So 100%. That's a good point.
All right, so with the North out of the way, let's move on to the East. Tell me about your division.
Well, there's the Eagles.
Yeah.
And they're eagling their way right through things. The way to go, Eagles. This week is exciting as a Cowboys fan because we're going to go play each other. Should be quite a game. Does it really mean anything to the Eagles whether they win or lose? I don't think so. They're in a great spot right where they are. I don't think it would change anything if they lost that game from a perspective of this board. I think they're right where they should be. The big thing for them this week that may play a role down the second half here is Lane Johnson and him being out. How does that factor into these upcoming games? Who knows? It's a crapshoot. Their defense has been great, as we were talking about earlier. So the Eagles stay right where they are. The Cowboys beat the Raiders. Beating the Raiders in and of itself, I don't think is particularly impressive. I do think that the way that we beat them was the right way. That's how we should, in theory. If you're a good team, you should beat teams that are 2-8 or 2-7 at the time. You should beat them pretty handily. And overall, I kind of feel like we did. I feel like, and maybe this is too generous, I do feel like right now Dallas is playing better than Atlanta. I do feel like we're playing better than Minnesota. Their defense is definitely better than ours. But I feel like overall, I would put us somewhere here. Still behind Houston, which is weird in its own right. If we beat Philly, then we can have all sorts of other conversations, but we haven't beat Philly. So let's just hold off on that. So that would put Cowboys right about there. And now I have to apologize to my division. But the Commanders, I have really kind of held on that they're going to kind of keep coming up because it is such a good football team. It is such a good football team. But they're just not weathering the wide receiver injuries and the quarterback injuries and all the other injuries they've definitely been struck with. There's only so much you can do. I do think it's time to move them downward. I think we can move them at the front of the picks 6 through 10, but I would move them down in this area at right now. That's kind of where I see them. I'm not sure that I see them trending upward again this season. Tons. Like I don't think they're going to end the season with 3 wins, but I think somewhere in that grouping of teams. And then last and certainly not least is the New York Giants. Speaking of injured teams, they've got their own category. We'll just keep hanging out with them there. They do. It is amazing to me that they keep getting in these close games. Like this is a team. This is a 2-9 team. Like they should be getting blown out every week. Not every week, but by good teams, and they just linger around. They're always in the game. So I don't know. I keep finding that interesting. I'm sure Giants fans are like, whoop-de-doo, but I still find it amazing that they're even in those games. So that's how I see the East right now. Not a lot of movement per se. Truthfully, I don't know that even for Washington, that's a long way down per se, but I'm sure for Washington fans, they're not overly appreciative of it. But there it is.
No, I mean, on the other hand of the whole Washington thing, like, if you're going to lose, like, it's a lost season because your quarterback's hurt and your wide receiver's hurt and this guy's hurt and everybody's hurt and they've got a ton of injuries. You kind of want to get the best draft pick that you can. So as much as this doesn't feel good, it will feel good at the draft. So that is something to look forward to, is the whole your team's going to have nice draft capital, and you'll get to do something with it because you do have your quarterback. You like Jaden Daniels, and that's the biggest thing. And so as long as you're building around him and this year's lost, get the best draft pick you can. This coming from a Cardinals fan that I've been in that position. I don't even know how many times now, and I'm in it again. So yay. Except that we don't have our quarterback. So the Giants, the Giants are weird. They went from, wow, they're the most exciting team in the country with Cam Scatterboot, to, wow, they're the most exciting team in the country with Jackson Dart, to, wow, they're the most exciting team in the country with Jameis Winston. Like, they just know how to create some like cinema. Like, they are exciting to watch. Dallas is, we've talked about this with like Baltimore and Chicago back a few weeks ago. I didn't really emphasize it this week, but like the whole teams that are trending upward. And we can't really put an arrow on it, but it's teams that are playing better. And there's like an indication of like, they may be better and their record's going to steadily improve, not just it went up 1 week. And I would say something similar about Dallas. You made these 2 trades, the bigger one, of course, being the Quinnen Williams one, but the Logan Wilson one was not without, that was not an invisible move. Like, you could see his impact somewhat. Yeah. And you've got these moves, and they feel like, okay, that game against the Raiders, yes, it's just the Raiders, but you saw the impact that you would hope to see from these players. Your defense looks better. 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, whatever, we would have expected the Raiders to lose that game, but lose it like 29-27 or 32-30 or something like that. Like, just some gross defensive non-existent game. And that's not how you won that game. So your defense is starting to find their way. I'm not saying they're a top 10 unit or anything like that, or certainly not like a top 5 unit, but they're not playing like a liability right now. Yeah. So that is indicative of you really trending up. And in the next few weeks, you'll get your chance. Obviously, the Eagles will be the biggest chance you get for the remainder of the season, I think. I don't think you played the Colts this year. So that will be, you'll get your chance to really climb. But yeah, Washington and the Giants, they're heading in the other direction, or at best, they're just going to stay right where they are. I could see either team winning a game or 2 for the closure of like the remainder of the season, but that's probably where they are. One important note about the Eagles, I think, they belong where they are still, but man, they've scored like 26 points in the last 2 games combined. And their offense, as great as their defense is, their offense is not really doing their part very consistently. So there's just this minor rumor, or whatever you want to call it, of the risk of them falling off. If that offense can't figure it out, there's just too many things about Jalen Hurts. We're not really sure here. And is AJ Brown complaining in the locker room? And it's like, why isn't Saquon Barkley anywhere near what he was last year? He's healthy. Yeah. And also now the loss of their right tackle is like, there's just one thing after another. And this sometimes turns into this fall from grace. The Eagles themselves have done this a few years ago. I think it was 2022, but they started out like 11-0 or something like that, or 10-0. And then they lost a bunch of their final games. So they are a little bit at risk. But for now, that defense, if nothing else, is still playing like world enders. So kudos to them. But they need to be careful. So very good. Yeah. That was enough time on the East, I guess. So let's move now. NFC South.
Yeah, so Tampa Bay. The easiest way to explain the challenges of Tampa Bay right now is to say that, hey, this 3-game stint that they're in has been the Patriots, the Bills, and upcoming against the Rams. This is a brutal schedule portion for them. They've not fared well in it. They're in a 1-score game against the Patriots that they lost. The Bills kind of roughed them up. If you look at their depth chart and see how many injuries they have on offense in particular right now, it is ludicrous. It's almost funny how bad it is. It is like every starter for their team is questionable for this upcoming game, including Baker. They are under it. And now they got to go face the Rams, who are playing like one of the best teams in the nation. It's going to be rough. If they can weather that, honestly, if they can pull out a win there, then they're going to be better. They've got some easier games coming up on their schedule to maybe get right again, get healthy again, and all of that. But it is a rough road for the Tampa Bay Bucs. I think we hold them here for another week, maybe just because currently they're in front of Carolina, which we can segue to Carolina on that. Carolina continues to show up. Not all the time. They had that ugly loss to the Saints. But then they'll beat the Falcons. They beat the Green Bay Packers, which is a little bit shocking. They're going to go play the 49ers and Rams coming up. I mean, they're definitely on an uphill trajectory. It is hard. They're so bipolar. One week you get a great game. The next week, what happened? I'm not quite, I want to be. I just can't quite push myself yet to say, let's Chicago Bears them and move them up into that playoff teams division group. But I mean, we're a week away potentially from shifting a whole lot of things from the top portion of this division, depending on what happens in that Tampa Bay game and Carolina's upcoming game this week. So I am excited about that. Now we get to the negative side of things. The Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons, I do believe, have earned their way to the lower tier here. I think they're going to join their friends, the Commanders, down in the picks 6 through 10 section. I just think that what they're playing right now, they're finding ways to lose. Now, they've played, speaking of hard 3 games that they come up against, they had the Patriots, the Colts, and the Panthers. That's a tough grouping of games. And they were in some of those games for sure. But they just not overcoming and not kind of winning those out. They've got a couple easier games coming up. They may pop back up a little bit here, but right now where they're playing, this is kind of where they're at. They're now playing with Cousins, I think, coming up this week, right? So I think that who knows where they're going to be coming up. But right now I think this is where they are. And then the Saints still sitting at the bottom. They won against the Panthers. That's cool. Next, they're coming up against the rather red-hot Dolphins. We'll see what they do there. That's kind of anyone's game. But yeah, that's kind of where I see things. Not a lot of movement in that division yet, but they're on the cusp of really shifting things up pretty heavily in this group. The Bucs trend, I do believe, is down. Carolina's trend, I think, is up. The other two are rather irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of looking that way. And again, with Michael Penix Jr. for the Falcons, he's looking like he's out now, I think, for the year. In fact, I know for a fact he's out for the year. And so that's not ideal. We'll see what Kirk Cousins has left in the tank. But if nothing else, up to this point, they were 3-2, and then they've lost their last 5. So it is what it is. They have some surprising strengths on that team. I did not think they'd be able to turn their pass rush around in one season. But everything else is falling apart. So it'll be an interesting offseason for them, I imagine. Your guess is way better than mine, probably on what all might happen there. The Saints will still be kind of interesting to watch because of the rookie quarterback. But other than that, it just doesn't seem like they have the team built right now to actually compete in a lot of games, let alone climb up these rankings very much. One interesting about the Carolina Panthers, someone pointed out, is they are 6-5. And in the 6 games that they won the coin toss. And in the 5 games that they lost the coin toss. So just watch the first 5 minutes, find out if they won the coin toss, and you'll know who wins this next game. So that is, it's funny. Yeah, Tampa Bay, they are, to me, I think you're right. They're teetering, just barely holding on to that spot in Super Bowl contenders. One of the things I would have to say about a team like that almost separates you from a playoff team. Yeah, you made the playoffs too. A Super Bowl contender is, I think you can beat other really good teams. And that's the thing, that the credit that they're losing right now is, you're losing these games. Oh, and you get the buts of it was a really good teams, but it's like, that's why you're in this bracket, is you're supposed to be able to win some of these games. Not all of them. No one expects you to go 17-0, but you're supposed to be able to win some of them. And right now you're just consistently losing in kind of semi-respectable fashion, but you're still losing. So I think that if after this next week they lose again, it might be time to just be like, there's a good chance you make the playoffs, but you don't look like you're going to contend with other playoff teams all that well. And then we'll see what the Panthers do, of course, to match that. But yeah, the South has more intrigue than you would think for a team that's slated to only have like one playoff team.
Yeah, for sure. And it's weird to think that Tampa may end up being sitting there with that Kansas City and Pittsburgh kind of group all of a sudden.
Right.
It's kind of an odd spot.
It's going to be weird to think that you're sitting with, oh man, they're in the bracket with Kansas City, and that's not a positive thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so much that goes into that. But anyways, all right. Well, let's wrap this up with the NFC West. Yeah. my lovely, wonderful division that I kind of hate. So last week we had the big matchup between the Rams and the Seahawks, and it kind of frustrated a little bit. So the Rams won. Okay, well then the Rams should move up, and I do think the Rams should move up. I'd put them toe to toe with the Eagles. I think that's fair. And we kind of said whoever wins that matchup probably needs to be a Super Bowl favorite. So I have no issue with this move. However, they beat the Seahawks by like 2 points in a game where Sam Darnold had 4 interceptions and they still only lost by 2 points. So I was like, I kind of wanted you to dominate this team, and instead you snuck out with a win with a +4 margin, I believe, in the turnover, right? It's just like, that was weird. And so similarly, I can't bring the Seahawks down a whole lot because as much as Sam Darnold does have a history, like a somewhat distant history now, of throwing lots of interceptions, he hasn't been doing that in a while, and I have no reason to believe he's going to do more of that moving forward, which means the Seahawks are still an incredibly good team. So I am going to move him down, but not far.
Yeah.
I'd certainly still take them right this second over either Detroit or Tampa. And they're very close to Buffalo. That'd be a really fun game to watch, is Buffalo and Seattle. But yeah, that's kind of what I've got for them. San Francisco, they played a really good game. They are playing about as some people were saying they're getting a lot healthier. And I was like, yeah, there's certain healthy that they're not going to get. Like, they're not getting Nick Bosa back this year. They're not getting Fred Warner back this year. So in some ways, they're getting close to as healthy as they're going to get. And they thumped us. So that was great. Yeah, we got a whole bunch of passing yards on them and still only had 22 points. So that was cool. With Brock Purdy back, George Kittle's playing like he's 25. Christian McCaffrey still playing at a really high level. I know he didn't have crazy yardage, but he had another 3 touchdown game. So like, they at least have the offense to go toe to toe with people, and they're well coached. So they're going to be a dangerous team moving forward. I'd be tempted to put them in front of Green Bay. It's close. I'll leave them where they are for now. But like, I think that right now, like, honestly, they might be more of a contender with these other teams than like a Tampa Bay is at the moment because of what they've shown. And I think they're 4-0 in the division. So yeah, they're playing incredibly well again, but it's kind of a smaller sample size because they were kind of shaky leading up into this game against the illustrious, mighty Arizona Cardinals. So show me a bit more, and they'll get their chance because they still got 2 games against the Rams and the Seahawks. Well, 1 game each against the Rams and the Seahawks, I believe, for the remainder of the season. So they'll get their chance. But yeah, I still have questions. And then there's my lowly Cardinals. It is definitely time, despite some weird records we just set in this last game, it is time to say that we're playing like a top 10 pick. Right now, where would I put us? This one's a little tricky about where to put us because I don't think we're going to win a whole lot more games, but I could put us in any of these 3 spots and be completely happy with it. I'll split the difference. We do play Atlanta at some point this year, and I worry that we don't match up well with them, but we'll get to that later this year. So we are still that team that's finding ways to lose, and now we're this team that is allowing ourselves to get down badly early and then just get run over for the rest of the game. So this week we get Jacksonville, one of the few. I mean, I'm not trying to get into this upcoming game too much, but we're against teams with good pass rush. We have not played well at all. And San Francisco, for all the things they do well, they do not have good pass rush at all. And we still couldn't beat them. So now we go this week and play Jacksonville, who has a sneaky top 10 pass rush. And I'm a little bit worried. Yeah. I think the Cardinals they're not going to fall a whole lot farther because I don't see us cracking into the top 5 picks, but I don't know that we're going to climb back out of top 10. So right now we're not playing particularly well at all. All the fans seem to just be ticked off that we didn't fire all the coaches. So yeah, it's dark times in Arizona and anywhere that you're an Arizona fan, as I don't actually live in Arizona anymore. But yeah, so we'll see. What did you think of the West?
Yeah, I mean the Seattle and Rams game had its frustrations for sure, but was a great game overall. I think it really shone a spotlight on the strength of the Rams, which is they just don't make mistakes. Like, you can beat them, but you just can't beat yourself. And I think that really defines what happened to Seattle is they really ended up beating themselves in that game. And still, as you go into your point, we're almost, they were still in that game down to the down to the end. I think they play again in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I think if you're a football fan, that'll be a game to watch because there's going to be some real animosity on that field when that swings back around. I'm really looking forward to the rematch of these two teams. I don't have any idea where that'll end up. Hopefully the two teams stay pretty healthy. That'll be a really great game. So yeah, I think this makes sense. The 49ers, they do tend to keep in games. And they're, like you said, I don't know if there's a better coach team in the NFL as a whole to have overcome what they've overcome. But yeah, I think they'll continue to linger around somewhere in this playoff or just below it kind of section as we head towards the end of the season. They've just been playing well. There's no reason to think they're going to change that up. And then I get your Arizona Cardinals maneuver there. It's also frustrating because their schedule really hasn't gotten any easier. Like they're still going to play a bit of a rough schedule, I feel like, coming up. So we'll see how they weather that and come through it. But no, I think as far as the West goes, sadly, this is the way the West plays out. It is one of the strongest divisions in the NFL. It's a lot of fun to look at and watch.
Yeah, well, it's fun for some people to watch.
We'll
see what we get for the remainder of the season. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We went a little bit longer today because there was a lot of stuff to move around. So we appreciate you sticking in there with us. For those who did, we're trying to get to 200 subscribers. We would appreciate a like and a subscribe. It really helps the channel. We look forward to doing more of this in the future. We'll get into our power rankings again next week. I hope that you'll come back in again. Let us know what you think down in the comments and who you'd move more or who you'd move down or up or anything like that. Really appreciate your time, and I hope that you have a fantastic